People now. Love the insurance. I told you we'll be
I don't
singing
type
this soon.
everything like no. With Consolidated Hallmark Insurance. Visit chiplc.com to get started. If you love
All
it,
right,
insure it with Consolidated Hallmark
I keep
Insurance.
forgetting the. All right, we're in 20.
Breakfast presents the headlines.
Okay, yes,
The
we are
stories,
getting
the
right.
news.
Read all about it.
In-depth
Oh,
analysis
how
of
I
national
forgot to ask you
current
about OB.
affairs.
How long it took you with
Oh
OB?
my goodness, almost
Freshly
40
pressed.
minutes. Oh no, you saw me when I came down, but it took a long time.
No,
Sure.
was I still there?
Yeah,
Oh, I
you
was
were
still
there.
there.
Consolidated Hallmark Insurance. Anxiety away. Value assured.
Smooth 98.1. We are gone past 7:30, which means it is time, more than time, for Freshly Pressed. For Thursday morning, joining Victor Peppo and myself, Shopper
Shopper Martin.
Martins.
We have Monsieur C. Good morning, Mr. C.
Good morning, guys.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Now, you listening can be part of the conversation simply by sending a message to us on WhatsApp. It's 0809 4440981. We're streaming live on YouTube. It's youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos.
And we're also on Twitter at Smooth981FM. You can find Mr. C at after that scene. And the stories we've got for you, we would love to get your thoughts on them. We're going to start off with this one in Vanguard newspaper has this headline and the article. GSM service providers plot 40% increase on voice calls, SMS, and data. And this is news that has made the rounds in almost all the papers. Reliable sources from the operators who confirmed the plans said that it was due to the high cost of diesel that has led to in operating their businesses, incessant harassments, and frivolous taxes and levies imposed on them by all manner of agencies from the three tiers of government. So the development is currently being handled by their umbrella body, the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria, Alton. Now, Mr. C, obviously we know the times are hard, not just for individuals, but also for corporations, for businesses. But wow, 40% increase. How's that gonna fare? What was your reaction when you saw this?
Okay, Shakba, thank you very much. And when I saw the story, I was like, it's about time.
Okay, yeah,
Now,
one of those.
so it's very simple.
Hmm.
The Association of Telecom Operators use diesel to power their sites, their base stations and the towers, the ones that they are not leasing. Now, everyone knows that power is a very vital cost in running any business.
We cannot stress it enough.
We are all witnesses to the jump in the price of diesel from about 280 naira a liter to the current price of about 650 a liter. That is a tremendous jump in the space of less than 6 months.
Hmm.
Now, that cost is being absorbed, was initially being absorbed by the telecom companies. Well, after a while, it's obviously impacting on the bottom line. Allied to the cost of the major source of power is the incessant and multiple taxes imposed by the various tiers of government. We've analyzed stories here where in some states they've threatening to shut down because state governments are levying all sorts of taxes, local governments are doing the same thing, the federal government is doing the same thing. There's no unified, harmonized tax regime for the telecom operators. And you then throw in this new excise duty that has been introduced in respect of the equipment. And it begs a question. Isn't the government coordinated enough to determine what should be taxed and what should not be taxed?
Hmm.
Now, in all of this, how do they honestly expect the businesses to prosper, to survive? Forget prosperity. They first of all have to survive before you can even start discussion about prosperity. But there's a
Mr.
flip
C,
side. There's
just
a
to
flip side.
hold on, just to point something out. As we're talking about taxation and non-taxation, government also runs on diesel.
Yes.
Mm.
So bigger questions, but there's a flip side to the agitation. Yes, they should increase the cost of their services. Yes, they should increase the cost of their services. Should it be 40%? I'm not sure. Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. And we also have to remember that some of the equipment are obtained from outside the country. So, rise in the dollar rate also hasn't helped because they have to source foreign exchange to acquire these equipment. Now, but the flip side of all of this for the consumer is yes, they're agitating reasonably for an increase, maybe not 40%. And the NCC ultimately will decide what the increase should be.
Yes.
But the flip side for the side of the consumers is this: will there be a corresponding increase in the quality of service delivery? Because it's one thing to agitate to recover your costs. Are you prepared? Are you determined to increase your service delivery, the quality of your service delivery? Because there have been a lot of calls. They've lost consumers across of four major telecom operators. Are they willing to do that? And in this report, they didn't address that.
Mr. C, we know that, in physics, they would say, oh, what goes up must come down. It's not in Nigeria. When we see a hike like this by 40%, it will never come back to status quo. That's number one.
Never say
Just,
never.
just a moment. Number two, we do know that they lost a lot of subscribers due to the NIN SIM linkage, and this caused them to want to jack their prices, not just about diesel cost in Nigeria. Like Shopper said, even government uses diesel. At Smooth FM, we use diesel as well. Also, there are some Nigerians who complain of being unemployed. Most government, state governments across Nigeria refused to pay the new minimum wage since it was agreed upon. And there are some Nigerians who are complaining, we're still receiving the old minimum wage. We cannot even run a family as at today. People cannot even buy proteins again, or they're running to other alternative sources. Yet here we are with 40% increase in voice calls, data, and text messages. Can we say that the NCC, where the box drop at their table, will do something about perhaps one, the subscribers that they disenfranchised or threw off from some of these subscribers, which is why we'll see this hike in 40%, for these services.
Okay, so Victor, interesting point you've raised, but I must stress the fact that this is a proposal. It's not definite.
Right.
That's one.
Right.
Two, the NIN move was a security move orchestrated by the security arm of government. Now, it is important that we understand that the NIN and SIMs must always be linked. So that policy is probably not going away for now.
But millions were affected, and they also affected the cash that were coming into the telcos.
Yes, millions were affected. So the people who own those suspended lines will do the needful because they use those lines to transact and coordinate their numerous business activities. So even if they can't recover those lines, if you have to get a new line today, you must produce an NIN. It's mandatory. It's the law. So ultimately, the NCC has to balance. It's a balancing act for the regulator. On one side, you have to take into consideration the interests of the telecom operators, but on the other end, you also have to take into consideration the interests of the public. So what you'll probably find an increase somewhere in the middle, maybe how it was proposed, or some a little under half of it.
All right, so let's move on now to our next story this morning. Remember, you can be part of the conversation by sending in your WhatsApp messages to 0809 4440981.
G from Alausa already saying excellent viewpoints by Victor on the telcos, and Yinka Balu saying if the cost of doing business is crazy, we need to have a conversation with the vice president in attendance. Let everyone open up their books. Let them specify about those harassing them, who the agencies are that are imposing levies. My salary has not been increased by 1%, so where am I going to get 40% more to pay for calls? And I realize people are making more WhatsApp calls. So what is with the increase on call rates? It's just above across the board, Yinka.
All right, let's move on to the This Day newspaper. House passes anti-terrorism, witness protection, money laundering bills, and others. As part of ongoing efforts to tackle corruption and strengthen the fight against terrorism, members of the House of Representatives yesterday convened a special session and passed 5 executive bills. Now, the lawmakers, in line with President Buhari's appeal, amended existing acts to bring them in tandem with international best practices. 5 of them, Mr. C, amended yesterday. Can we look at this and how it has an impact on the on Nigerians in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you, Victor. So, yesterday, the House of Representatives passed 5 bills, executive bills. But for the purposes of this conversation, I will be focusing on 3 of them. The first of the 3 is the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022. The old Act of 2013 was repealed, and it was repealed so that they could include new provisions that deal with realities that came to prominence after the old act had been passed into law. Now, the Terrorism Act is designed to ensure that there's a unified legal framework for preventing and dealing with all aspects of terrorism, from funding to collaboration to carrying out terror acts. And it is designed and hopes that when implemented, it would aid significantly in Nigeria's fight against terror. The second act that was passed that I want to focus on is what I term the Witness Protection Bill. Now, we've had in past instances accusations of accused persons, politically exposed persons, interacting with proposed witnesses and intimidating them, coercing them, or encouraging them not to come to court and give adverse testimony. Now, obviously, they've copied the witness protection arrangements from the United States. Now, we're not sure if a specific agency will be set up to deal with witness protection or they will hand it over to an existing agency. But some of the provisions are designed to ensure that witnesses who come out to give adverse testimony are protected. There's a provision for safe houses. There's a provision for a witness protection program in Nigeria. I don't know how that is going to work, especially given that we don't have strong institutions. There's a provision that says if anyone gives out information concerning a witness under this program, the person is liable to a fine of 2 million naira or a term in prison. Now, given the fact that the sanctions, in my view, are quite mild compared to the adverse benefit that will be gotten, maybe it's something they need to revisit. But on paper, it's a good idea. Our challenge has never been enacting laws. Our challenge remains enforcing the law. That is the big problem. Then the last one is the Money Laundering Prohibition Act. The one of 2011 and 2012 was repealed, and the 2022 Act was enacted, and it basically contains most of the provisions of the old Act and new provisions, also designed with a view to ensuring that money laundering in all its forms and appearances is adequately dealt with. But again, good laws on paper, you can't fault them. And I dare say Nigeria has some of the best laws you can find on the planet. The only difference is, how do we enforce our laws? Do we actually seriously enforce them all the way?
Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we've got more stories for you, and of course, your messages, your thoughts coming in on Freshly Pressed.
Whoa, 15 minutes already? We need to run quickly.
Okay. No, the next 2 questions, I'll do them in like 4 minutes.
Yes.
Then they're not straight there. In fact, the next three stories, give me 6 minutes. Yeah. Seriously? Seriously.
I thought it was just the singing. This is some Yemi Alade moves.
Oh my goodness.
You love it, insurance. I mean it, all right.
Protect everything you care about with Consolidated Hallmark Insurance. Visit
Okay. Love music,
Get
love like
started.
that.
If you love it, insure it with Consolidated Hallmark Insurance. This is Smooth 98.1.
Love music, love life. And we're back for more here on Freshly Pressed, going straight into the story from the Premium Times. Masob demands Kanu's release. Igbo presidency as Buhari visits Ebonyi. Now, the president of Nigeria is going to be in or begins his two visit in Ebonyi State today. He's there to commission some projects, and we heard from the Movement for the Actualization of the Sovereign State of Biafra demanding the immediate release of Nnamdi Kanu from detention. Hmm. Mr. C, I'm just taking this straight to you for your thoughts.
Okay, so thank you, Shopper. Very quickly, the president on a 2-day working trip to Ebonyi State to commission some projects that have been carried out by the Ebonyi State government. As part, prior to his visit, MASOB, one of the indigenous groups advocating for the creation of the state of Biafra, has demanded Nnamdi Kanu's release and also demanded that the Igbos be given a clear run at the 2023 presidency. So, quick response. First of all, I'll deal with the demand for the presidency. You don't demand the presidency in any contest. You work towards it. You get the buy-in of other parties, other regions, other people to obtain what you want.
Right.
Nobody demands nothing, and you don't have the power to enforce that demand. So it shows a lack of understanding on their part. Now, with regards to the issue of Nnamdi Kanu, personally feel he's just a distraction. He's a clown. I don't take him seriously. Never have, never will. But he's standing trial ostensibly for seemingly serious offenses. However, we have seen in the past how the Nigerian state, through several administrations, has dealt with similar matters like this. Now, it's an ideology. There's a school of thought prevalent in the eastern region of Nigeria, the eastern part of Nigeria, that to some extent they feel marginalized, they feel oppressed. And until you deal with the background circumstances, you will always have the school of thought. But to demand his release, that's a political discussion they should have with the governors of the 5 southeastern states, with political thought leaders, and we'll see where that goes.
All right, quickly, let's look at your messages. Gilbert Musa from Festac says, on the proposed hike in cost by telcos, it should be noted that their service is unstable and not regular. Experience drop calls regularly. I had an experience recently after a recharge was made. There's failure to reconnect me to roll over my bulk reserve data, thereby lose my entire bulk reserve data. And the proposal, in my thinking, is not justified. Their current service is below average.
BDA says, Nigerians are currently, let's see, Nigerians are generally uneducated and unemployed. Unfortunately, that means we will resist every single price adjustment. It's unrealistic for the government to freeze prices of any commodity because that will mean more government subsidies that we cannot afford. If our productivity increases, then we can be more insulated from external shocks. Remember that the way the external countries absorb their economic shock is by passing cost hikes to countries like Nigeria and other African countries. My only concern is that we do not have anti-competition laws that prevent price fixing. 40% increase by every single telecom looks, sounds, and feels price fixing.
Austin comes in with this one. How can they enforce laws in Nigeria when they are running the country as a family business? If you're not a member of the family, you're guilty on arrival. That's Austin from Satellite. And Yinka Bolu sends a message. He says, witness protection in Nigeria. Okay, safe house in Nigeria. He's asking, please, what's the housing deficit like at the moment? Can we just arrest and try anyone that breaks the law for the sake of making things simple? Because all this is grammar. Police can't even protect us. All they want, and they want to protect witnesses. Let's try to cope with the US with small sense. Let's try to copy the US with small sense. That's what he sends in. All right, let's go on now. The New Telegraph. ASU strike. Students protest, wants government intervention. And they were protesting some parts of Benin City for several hours yesterday as students across tertiary institutions in the states protested continued strike of ASU. Mr. C.
Victor, I understand their frustrations. It's really traumatizing that you enroll for an academic program and you're not sure when you're going to finish, and they've been at home for a considerable period of time. Now gathered in the center of Benin for hours, asking for the government's intervention. Now the government has actually started intervening concerning this matter. It's just that the concern of the concern of the government's attention to this matter is debatable. Now they say they will continue to gather the city center until their demands are met. Now their demands are interesting because we all know why the ASU matters haven't been resolved. There is a lack of funding. There is a lack of funding to sort out what they want. Now, ASU has been asking for about 200 billion, if I'm not mistaken, and the government maintains that it's working on it and there's no money yet, or there isn't sufficient money. So, my thoughts go out to the Nigerian students who are told, due to no fault of theirs, but until the government decides to release the money or finds the money from wherever they're going to get it from, these poor, unfortunate students will continue to gather, not just in Edo State, but in other parts of the country until this matter is resolved.
All right, let's move on now.
Yes, let's do just that. Now we've got this one in from the Vanguard newspaper. Police confirm bomb blast at oil company in Imo community. Now this happened in Izombe, Oguta, local government area of Imo. Mrs. E, do you want to take us through what happened exactly?
Okay, so thank you, Shakpa. So the story indicates that two unidentified middle-aged men who were carrying a package believed to be a bomb that exploded on their way in a flow station belonging to one of the operators in the oil and gas industry. Now, the two people died instantly, and it appears there was some damage to the flow station. But beyond that, the report is very sketchy on
On
details.
details.
Yes, but we expect the Imo State Police Command to investigate this matter and determine if there were other perpetrators, and if the other perpetrators do exist, to fish them out and ensure that they get their day in court.
And from the Guardian newspaper, 11 distribution companies, that's discos, have denied rejecting 2,495.3 megawatts electricity load as supply remains dismal.
Okay, so thank you, Victor. So, the Transmission Company of Nigeria issued a report within the last 10 days, I believe, stating that the 11 distribution companies rejected 2,495 megawatts of electricity that were allocated to them. Now, the 11 discos say that's not correct, that they were unable to utilize only 688 megawatts. So we still see more of the ball passing as with regards to what is responsible for the poor public power supply in the country. Now, whether it's 2,495 or 688, there is power that is not being utilized. Now, why is that the case? That's the first question that needs to be answered. Who is responsible for that? And if we take the disco's position that only 688 was unutilized, it would appear that that is more within the remit. So what are they doing to resolve that issue? Because we don't even generate enough power in the first place. We don't transmit enough power in the first place. So when we're able to generate and transmit power, it is a shame that the discos are unable to utilize all of it. So whatever needs to be done to fix the problem should be done, because Nigerians are groaning under the burden of having to generate power through alternative means, whether it's solar, whether it's inverters, whether it's generators, diesel or petrol powered. The burden is it's serious.
At the end of the day, Nigerians are used to being their own government. However, there is a reason for the actual government to exist, right? And in the times we're facing, where we're seeing hyperinflation just going all about the place, when we have the country being buffeted left, right, and center from external shocks. Um, at what point do we now start to say, okay, well, at what point do we start to give up? Because we've just from the stories that we've discussed this morning, and in previous days, so we've had no increase in salaries, but increase in the three, let's just say three major things that we that take up most of our money: food, transport,
Power.
power, and then number four, phone,
Data.
data, calls. well, which is still proposed, but at the end of the day, by the time it comes out in the news, we should start just keep our eyes open.
So, Shopper, this is unfortunately our reality. And it's sad to say that we deserve this. How did we vote in a candidate that never campaigned, that never bothered to tell us what his plan was? Why are we now shocked? 2023 is coming, right? There are 13 candidates on the platform of the ruling party, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 on the platform of the major opposition party. Have we started asking them really, beyond the big English and the wonderful delivery, what exactly are the nuts and bolts of your plans? What are the details? I want to make Nigeria great. That's beautiful. How?
But
You can't
did
increase-
care about his plans. I remember at least there was a lot of
Chopper.
talk about housing. There were
In
different points that were
2015.
made.
Shopper?
So I was
Okay,
going to
fine.
ask you which
In
was
20
it for re-election or for the first?
Yes, is it for the first or the second? Because the
2015 or
second can be seen
2019?
as a continuation of the first.
Shopper, in 2015, he made a distinction between what he said and what his party said.
Okay.
Let's not.
Yeah, let's just look at
Leave
that.
it alone.
But we have some comments and we should take them. Okay, Chuku in Lekki says, spot on Mr. C. Comments regarding Masob and Buhari's visit. Just saying it the way it is.
And Ozzy has sent in a message saying, so the unused power may be going somewhere else and being sold as a premium. It makes no sense that they cannot reconcile their figures and account for the unused power. It's just shameful.
Ideally, there is supposed to be excess generation of power to create redundancy in the system, so that if a power plant shuts down for a reason, the redundant power is utilized. However, nothing is ideal in this country. Ned is the one who sent in that message.
And just to end the show, we'll take a couple more messages. Rachel from Ikeja, GRA, says, seeing the strike headlines gives me mixed feelings, and trust me, for some of my friends, it traumatizes them. I was in final year from, wow, it's not final year at this point, it's plural. I was in final year from 2019 to 2021 in Unilag. It hugely affects grades and demotivates people as well. It's not just affecting students. Graduates can't get cleared and thus cannot be mobilized for NYSC, and those that want their transcripts can't get them as well. And someone will now blame me for leaving with a B2.
Sorry, Jerry, it's not your fault. Bamidele comes in with a message, says, ASU is asking for the federal government to implement a 2009 agreement. It won't happen. Well, government is a continuum. We pay more money as school fees for our children in primary schools, and we want university education to be free in Nigeria. ASU is not ready to teach the students.
And we end the show on that message. That's all, folks. Yes. Yes.
All right.
That's all. But thank you so much for sending your messages in. And thank you, Mr. C, for joining us for today's Freshly Pressed.
You're welcome.
Make sure you find him Twitter, Instagram. He is at Monsieur C, and there are 3 E's after the C. Okay, that's all. Coming up, it's going to be the Grapevine at 8:15.
Like insurance, anxiety away, value.
They really love your analysis. Some of them were commenting. Mr. C,
Oh, they love Mr. C's analysis. Also. Mr. C, Wadi.
oh, yeah.
That's how you're now going to be president of something on based on your analysis. Oh, yeah, we're on YouTube.